Apple has lots of exciting new products and innovations to announce in 2025.
Yes, which I will be announcing all of them in today's video.
No, Drew, don't do that, please! You're never gonna be on the nice list if you leak everything at the start of each year.
Sorry, Tim, but it's out there. We gotta talk about it. To pretend it doesn't exist would just be living in denial.
Oh, but Drew, the events, the keynotes, they're just not as special when you...
Pre-record them all and don't do them live?
Yeah, what? I meant you steal the show. Everybody knows what's gonna happen.
That's right, but as soon as the events were no longer live, they took kind of that special in-person feel away anyway, right?
I would normally scream good morning in your left ear, but not today. I am mad at you, so I'm simply going to walk away in silence.
There's no way. He has to say it. This is just part of his DNA.
No, Drew, that's wrong. I will not say it.
All right, let's wait. Still need to watch.
Good morning.
There it is.
I was coughing. That doesn't count.
Alright, it's that time of the year again for me to make an incredibly dated video, but at least right now, in this very moment, it's not exactly dated because we're all in the speculative leak and rumor territory for 2025. So I figured let's just keep it simple and go in chronological order. It's really possible that at any time now, Apple is going to refresh the MacBook Airs because the M4 chip has been around for a while. In fact, it launched in May of last year on the iPad Pro, but yes, found its way into the Mac Mini, the iMac, the new MacBook Pros, so it's only natural that the MacBook Airs would be next. So honestly, you could expect that within the next couple of weeks, potentially, and then that brings us to the spring event, which doesn't sound particularly exciting. I think we got a whole lot of new iPads last year. We got the Apple Pencil Pro, we got the thinner iPad Pro, so that's probably not going to be touched or updated for a while. So at the spring event, which could be around March or April, or potentially slip into May, I think we should mostly expect Apple to just drop 2 new pieces of hardware, and that's a more affordable iPhone that's supposed to replace the SE3. Thank God, that thing should be gone. In fact, the European Union already banned it. You can't buy it there. And also the iPad 11th generation. Pretty much the only iPad that didn't get much love at the last big refresh, but because it's still supposed to be the affordable one, the $350 iPad with a non-laminated display with USB 2.0 speeds, but still good for people out there who just want a cheap iPad. A lot of people use them as cash registers, so you don't want to make sure that your cash register has like the fastest data transfer speeds. Pretty much the only update to the budget iPad is probably going to be some new silicon, and that should enable Apple Intelligence, which we all love and care for so much. So yes, you'll finally be able to generate Cowboy Frog on the iPad 11th gen. I expect the design to remain pretty much the same. There hasn't been much talk about it getting Apple Pencil Pro compatibility. It will probably still just be reliant on the good old-fashioned USB-C Apple Pencil, but similar to the iPad mini, I think they will ship it with an A17 Pro chip. They just got a lot of them lying around, and I guess there's a chance they could go with the A18 chip, but it's just the fact, I think, that Apple was willing to put a Pro chip in a non-Pro device, like the iPad mini, just goes to show that they've got a bunch of silicon lying around, and they're like, you know what, this was only going in the 15 Pros, and we're not making those anymore, so let's just divert some to the cheap iPad, and that way it can sound like, okay, it's not quite as good as the A18 chip, but it's just good enough to run Apple Intelligence features, and it sounds old enough that they'd be comfortable selling it at a pretty discounted rate. But it will be one of the cheapest devices ever that is actually compatible with Apple Intelligence, that's got a display and speakers and everything. So if you're into the AI crap, then I guess the budget iPad getting that is kind of cool. But also, Apple Intelligence is supposed to come to the more affordable iPhone along with the A18 chip, and this is partly why a lot of people expect there to be a price hike on this model, which is now rumored to be called the 16E, but with naming, it seems like leaks and rumors are wrong a lot, so I'm hesitant to believe that report. It could just be another iPhone SE, but from the outside, it will mostly just look like an iPhone 14, still gonna have a notch, no dynamic island. The only difference will be there's supposed to still just be a single camera lens on the back. Potentially, though, a 48 megapixel sensor, which means you might actually get some optical zoom options in the camera. I know it's just cropping in, but technically you're maintaining that 12 megapixel image as you crop in, so I don't know, digital zoom doesn't feel accurate of a description either. Apple calls it an optical zoom, but regardless, the camera should be better, and it's a 6.1 inch OLED display, just like an iPhone 14. It also may be rocking an action button and USB-C, of course, because that's the direction the iPhone lineup is headed in. Then they can finally have a slightly more affordable iPhone in the European Union, and with that A18 chip on board, it should support Apple Intelligence, but that's not that exciting to me. What's more exciting is that more affordable iPhone is supposed to be the first iPhone ever with an Apple-designed modem, finally moving away from Qualcomm, enabling better battery life through improved efficiency, with the only caveat being this budget iPhone will probably not get ultra-wideband support. That's just one of the cost-saving measures they're going to go with in order to preserve efficiency and try to keep that battery life up, but I think that's a good call. Most people who are buying, the cheapest iPhone in the lineup, they're not likely to care about ultra-wideband connectivity. That's very much a techie kind of thing. Everyday consumer would not care. So that's mostly, I think, what's been rumored at the spring event. I'm hesitant to say there will be new colors because Apple just hasn't done that in the last couple of years. Seems like they're just against product red now, but who knows? Maybe they'll bring it back now that the iPhone 16 colors actually look pretty good. It could use a little spice with some red. And then that brings us to Dub, where I think we're mostly going to get a pretty boring suite of updates because all of Apple's software engineers have spent the last year trying to roll out Apple Intelligence features, and it's been all hands on deck with the large language models. In fact, there's genuinely been reports saying that there have been features for iOS 19 that are delayed simply because of all of the development time that Apple Intelligence is taking. So there might be some modest updates here and there, but I expect the software team is just going all in on more AI stuff. So I don't think Apple's gonna change within a year with their obsession of the generative AI features, so we'll probably just get a bit more hype around stuff that you probably won't end up using. But there should be hardware in June as well, because there's been a lot of talk about Apple improving the M4 chip so that it actually can be scaled up to the same extent the M2 chip was, and we'll actually get an M4 Ultra chip. Of course, this would be available in the Mac Studio, which probably wouldn't get a redesign. I don't know, maybe they put a headphone jack on the front like a Mac Mini, but I guess some people were against that. Maybe they put the power button underneath it. Everybody loves that design, right? But yes, the Mac Pro should finally be getting an update with the M4 Ultra, but probably still not worth it in the end. $7,000 for that thing, just so you can have some networking card. I don't know. I don't think it's worth it, but technically in 2025, we should see the fastest, most powerful Apple Silicon ever, with even more unified memory than we've ever seen before. And around that time, I guess that would have basically completed the transition for the entire Mac lineup. We're going to have iMacs, Mac Minis, MacBook Airs, MacBook Pros, and Mac Studios and Mac Pros that are all rocking the M4 family of chips, just in time for, I think, later in the year, where they will immediately show us how the M4 chip is dated and the M5 is much better. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. That would be in the fall. Before that, we have iPhone season, of course, in September, where the iPhone 17 lineup is finally rumored to address one of the biggest complaints from the tech community of the past 4 years. The regular iPhones are supposed to finally get 120 hertz displays. I guess hell froze over because Apple finally feels like throwing the entry-level iPhones a bone and saying, okay, here's an LTPO panel. But of course, the odd one out in this new iPhone lineup is that there's not supposed to be necessarily an iPhone 17 Plus replacing the outgoing 16 Plus. There's supposed to be a thinner iPhone, a slim iPhone, an iPhone 17 Air. Still not exactly sure what it's going to be called, but most of the rumors are saying this would be the thinnest iPhone ever, breaking even the records of the iPhone 6 at around 5 millimeters. A pretty thin iPhone, and this is mostly in part due to Apple developing better modems that are more efficient, and this razor-thin iPhone, which is still supposed to be around $1,000, is just going to be extremely lightweight, and Apple will be able to brag about that and kind of use it as a marketing gimmick. The tech community will probably be rather confused by it, and I wouldn't be shocked if someone, even with a test device under embargo, finds a way to bend it on camera, or accidentally maybe, and then they talk about it in their review. But Jerry-rig everything is going to have a field day with this iPhone. It's kind of unfair that Apple is making an iPhone just for him, but there's been talk on the other iPhones that they might be rearranging the camera cameras. We still don't know for sure. We're getting conflicting reports from different leakers, and usually if there's a conflict, the winner is typically the one who says things are going to stay the same, because as we all know, Apple likes to keep designs kind of boring over the years because, hey, it works, right? But there is talk that maybe on the back there's going to be a bit more aluminum used instead of glass, partly so that they can save on weight and maybe have better thermals. And they might be upgrading the telephoto lens to a 48 megapixel sensor this year to kind of complete the trifecta of ultra wide, wide, and telephoto. Right now, the ultra wide finally got 48 megapixels and telephoto is last, and that should allow them to have, you know, a 5x optical zoom for real, and then also a digital zoom that kind of goes beyond that thanks to the 48 megapixel sensor. So better zoom performance, and I'm sure across the board, better battery life, partly and thanks to Apple's new in-house design modems. But that's about it. There's not rumored to be a bunch of talk about substantially bigger displays or brighter displays. In fact, I'm still convinced that Apple will find a way to tick off the rest of the tech community with the iPhone 17 regular models. Like, they'll have 120 hertz, but they only activate when you're in game mode. So when you can access the 120 FPS, that's when the displays go that high. But if you're just navigating the home screen, it's still locked at 60 hertz, and they call it air motion or something. I don't know. That sounds like the kind of thing Apple would do, where they like kind of give people promotion, but not really, because at the end of the day, of course, they all want you upgrading to the pros in the first place. But I think that will mostly be the iPhone 17 lineup, and then, yeah, in the fall, that's probably around the time that they'll release the M5 family of chips. Probably just start out with M5, M5 Pro, and M5 Max, and it's not supposed to be a redesign for the MacBook Pros, but those might be ready. Maybe they feel like upgrading a Mac Mini or something, but it feels like they like to debut their new, most powerful silicon, at least as far as the Mac is concerned, on the MacBook Pros, because that's a bit more of their premium notebook, and more people are buying laptops now than desktops, of course, so end of this year is probably when we're going to see the M5 chip, and because it hasn't happened as much as I'd asked in the past, I personally predict that Apple will not have a new Pro Display XDR refresh or a new Studio Display. I think they're just going to leave those alone and say, nope, that's good enough, and kind of just leave it at that. As far as the Apple Watch is concerned, I've been tricked several years in the past into thinking there would be a big redesign, and then there wasn't. There's been some talk that they might do a new SE this year, but I think it will be mostly the same across the Apple Watch lineup. Maybe a little bit faster charging. Maybe they'll settle with Massimo and find a way to get blood oxygen checking back, but I think it's going to be a pretty stale, basic year for the Apple Watch. But I hope I'm wrong. What are you guys predicting for 2025? Do you think it's going to be boring? Do you think there's going to be any updates with Apple Vision Pro? Because I don't. But feel free to let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. And thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. Seriously, helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again. This is your absolute Pure, and I will see you on the next one.